GM.
GM, how are you?
I am great. How are you?
Oh, wonderful. It's a great day on the Superchain. So much is happening. I'm excited to dive
Oh,
into some of these topics, but yeah, it's been a busy week, and it's still, this is a halfway point, and there's tons more to
there's a
go.
lot happening. There is a
Yeah,
lot. I'm just going to put this little Superchain Spotlight thing here. Here we go.
that's us.
That is us. GM.
10th anniversary episode. No, I'm just kidding. We just keep, like, just can't count
We
anymore.
have no idea what episode this is, folks, so bear with
It's
us.
this one. It's this episode. You're
Exactly.
watching this episode.
And we are the Superchain Spotlight edition of the Good News Show. We're here every Wednesday, Brock and I, to bring you kind of the latest breaking news headlines from around the ecosystem. And there's a lot happening today. We've been going back and forth in Telegram, just kind of trying to figure out what we're going to talk about because there's so many things happening. So we're definitely going to get into it. But Brock, do you want to tell people who you are?
My name is Brock. I'm been a creative solutions architect. I'm going to keep just changing it up. I do code things, but also help bring ideas to reality. And I've made a career out of challenging the mislabeling of things that are impossible. That's what I've been. That's my spiel. But super big advocate of the Superchain and all things blockchain and transparency and things like that.
Amazing. And I'm Rachel Wilkins. If you don't know who I am the co-founder of Good News Onchain. I've been working in Web3 for a couple of years, or we're not calling it Web3 anymore. We're calling it Onchain. Been working on chain for a couple of years, since 2021. Previously had a career in the fine art world. And so delighted to be bringing you the latest news here on a Wednesday. Let's just get into it.
Sure. Yeah, let's do it.
We have no fun. Yeah, we have no FUD to bust today. So
I mean, I'm sure that the no FUD is FUD in and of itself. Like things are going too well. But no, I think what it is the energy of on-chain summer and then into Basecamp and several other things that have kind of been happening this last couple of weeks. Really, I think it just has everyone either heads down on stuff or feeling good about the recent developments. Like, not that there's no negativity. I'm sure if you looked hard enough, you could find it, but there's no big like misunderstandings or anything like that. So it's good to see because there's a focus on all the greatness that's coming out without something trying to drown out like those great things that we're celebrating. So
I love that. I want to read this paragraph from OP just for our first story. So the OP Labs team is rolling out native interoperability for the Superchain, aiming to unify the ecosystem by making asset and data transfers seamless, fast, and cost-effective. And this move will eliminate the need for expensive and slow L1 Ethereum communication, ensuring that a smoother user experience is had, and that and also unlocking massive growth potential for developers and users alike. Quick stat before we jump into it. So the Superchain is one of the biggest Ethereum L2 ecosystems, with 29 plus OP stack chains, including, of course, Base, Zora, and Mode Network. And it currently contributes 36.4% of all Ethereum transactions today. That is a big number.
More than a third, yeah.
Yeah, let's talk about why this matters.
So for the interoperability, like even years ago, I was like, okay, we've got this blockchain and this blockchain, right? But they don't work together. And I think OP and Optimisn has really with the Superchain tried to set the course for solving that. Like no one wants to go, oh, I'm in a car on a highway, but I want to go over there. Well, this highway doesn't go here. I need to go and switch highways. And over there, you need a new driver's license. And then you have to buy a new car. Like that's too much friction. And so getting to the point where you're in like a hover car and you can just go woo and over to the next highway and easily, smoothly, almost like frictionlessly transition. I think it's like going in and out of someone's house where it's like you have to take your shoes off. And so you're constantly going, oh, this friction of like taking my shoes and putting them off. And again, no disrespect to people who leave shoes on or off. I don't care about that. But like that one step, if they can ease that friction to where it's just like, no, you've got shoes that work anywhere. Like you can, whatever you're comfortable with. And so I really am surprised at how elegant this solution seems to be. Like they've kind of put the vision out there. And if it comes true to how they're kind of defining it, I think it's going to make things really easy. So it's like I can do over here a little base stuff, and I can move over here and do little Optimisn things and mode and all these where the friction points move away, and you just get the best of all worlds because each of the super chains can focus on their own little niche, and so you get all of that goodness all the time without having to kind of do all this chaos between the things. So very, very cool to see this finally come to fruition. It's something that I've been ideating on for a while, and it's I think this is another big step in growing up and becoming like part of something that everyday users will use without any downsides. Because I think without showing that value, it's tough to get someone to do a bunch of hurdles. But with this, it just eases the friction. So I'm super excited for this to come to fruition, because I think it'll unlock a ton of things for developers, but more so for end users.
How do you think it impacts the Ethereum ecosystem as a whole, kind of more broadly?
Yeah, I was talking to somebody earlier this week, and I was kind of just explaining Superchain, and I do think that the analogy of like the Superchain itself is like a theme park, just to help illustrate like the division of like how each park can have its own specialty of like why it's a thing. But then it goes walking that back of like, how does the Superchain relate to Ethereum? I think Ethereum is the earth in this metaphor, right? Like, so Ethereum is like the thing that we're planting roots into, that we're still making use of. Everyone is using it. It's still baked, and everything goes back down into the soil, or everything goes back into like the earth, right? But we can do all the kinds of stuff on top of the earth, like build buildings, build theme parks, build grocery stores. Like, and again, this is like a physical analogy for something that's digital, but I think that's the relationship. It's like, no, like the Superchain's great and awesome, but it wouldn't exist without Ethereum, right? So we're not leaving Ethereum or saying this is better or this is worse or anything like that. If anything, it's like we're using the earth as a foundation that we all share, those joined resources. The earth gives us security and all these other things. But the Superchain on top of it gives us fun, gives us commerce, gives us ways of life. Some people literally will have a job that's fully based on chain. And I think that's here for some folks, but it's going to come even more clear on that's for a lot of folks, that it's a different way, it's a new way, but it's a way that's more transparent and fruitful for all in theory, than the alternatives that we've seen. So for me, it's super exciting, but I think that's the relationship, how I would paint a picture of it.
On the dev side, are you seeing any new opportunities coming up because of this potential for interoperability?
Yeah. I think that you're going to see so NFTs, I think, is like the thing that's like the most tangible of the digital things for a lot of folks. Like they get in and start to get collections where you're like minting moments, or minting pictures that you want to remember, or minting like episodes of the show. And so those can be minted on one, like even with Zora right now, you have to like pick your blockchain. And for people that are with the Superchain, it's like, oh, I want these on Base because that's where I've kind of planted my feet. It will soon become where it doesn't matter. And so I think that removing that friction lends to a lot of removing of work, like hassle of like, oh, I have to build a thing where I have to pick which blockchain and what blockchain do they have funds on, and it starts to remove all of that, where you just do the thing. And I think that will echo. It'll be more so felt for the users, but it'll echo also on the developer side. I compare it to like they're doing the very, very hard work to make it seem effortless for the users, and I think that's the more that we do that, the more that it just starts to snowball, where people are like, oh, wow, wait, this isn't on chain. Like, what's wrong with you? Like, or it'll get to the point where like we just make the assumption of like, I have Wi-Fi, like that's all I need. Like I have on-chain things, that's all I need. Like the technologies start to fade a little bit because we did all the hard work up front, and then it's just, oh yeah, of course that's how it works. Of course it's transparent. Those kinds of things.
Yeah. Amazing. So folks, definitely check out OP. We're going to drop some links in the chat where you can learn more about interoperability and all the fun things that are happening. What else? So we also have an announcement from OP about the Sunnies. The Sunnies, if you don't know what they are going to be the Onchain Awards. It's happening. It's going to start. We're going to start seeing some tweets from them next week. But there is an opportunity. If you are a business owner, if you have a project, if you have a protocol, if you're a creator, there is an opportunity for you, and we want you to make sure you're listening to this. So let me just remove this banner real quick. But we have Optimisn has an opportunity for folks to sponsor an award. Now that sounds big and scary, like you're going to have to pay for something, but there's no cost involved in sponsoring. What OP are looking for is your help in amplification. So if you have a platform, if you have followers, if you have an engaged audience and you're able to help amplify the Sunnies, guess what? You could have an award named after you. So very exciting.
The most Breadcat award. I will put my name in the hat and see who wins.
Exactly.
That's super cool though, that they're like not only making it a thing that they're doing, but also kind of having people chip in to make sure that it's the shape of everything instead of the shape of like, there are a handful of people working on trying to be as open as possible. But that does have limitations. So opening it up for everybody to kind of jump in at the cost of just make it matter is pretty cool.
Yeah. So, I mean, also just to kind of throw this in, there's over 500,000. Let's change that. 500,000 OP.
It's a slight difference.
Yes.
Yeah.
So 500,000 OP up for grabs for winners of the Sunnies. Now, it's very much a data-based award system, which is good. It's not a popularity contest. So we're going to be sharing some more information next week about how folks can actually get involved and be eligible for some of that prize pot, because that's a biggie.
Yep. Yeah, I think that is a smart way to do it. They've done that with their grants too, where applying isn't just, I did a thing, trust me. It's, you submit the contract, or you submit the GitHub repository if it's like code-based, or you submit like the actual results. And so then it's more tangible, and there's no like, I just have a bot farm that can spam yes voting kind of thing to leech money. So it's very like not extracting, it's very like supporting. And so it's super cool how they've done things in the past. I'm excited to see the details on how this will work out. I'm sure it's similar though.
Yeah, and make sure you're following Benji. We will drop his tweets below this video so that you can actually find out some more information about how to get involved. But I'm very excited about that. It should be fun to see the community kind of come together. And I think it's just a great way to close out On-Chain Summer as well, because we are 2 weeks away from On-Chain Summer being over.
Soon On-Chain fall.
On-Chain, maybe it
fall
can be
into chain. Fall on the chain.
Off-chain.
We'll workshop it. Yeah, we'll workshop it.
But I think we should start our own initiative and come up with something fun, like
pumpkin spice on-chain,
between chain pumpkins or something. I don't know.
Yeah.
We'll think of something. All right. So what else do we have going on? We have let's see, rounds. Yeah. Talk to us about.
If you're not familiar, rounds is super cool. It's basically like you can say, hey, I want to engage this kind of content, and so here's like a bounty. But instead of just saying like one person gets it, it's just basically you turn it on, and then anything that you like inside the channel that you set it up for gets put into the pool. And then at the end of whenever it ends, everyone that got put into the pool gets an equal slice of the pot, right? And so big ones are like the on-chain summer one, where like people are just doing on-chain. It doesn't have to be code even, but you can do the on-chain one. You can do the Optimism, like the Ask Superchain anything. I jumped in there and we had like a little conversation even. And so for just like kind of being curious, this one was a pretty low bar. But I think the quality too, like they have to like it. So you came like, what is the Superchain 1,000 times? But yeah, it's some thoughtful like questions about it. And I think it also led them like from that, like how is this relation? Optimism kind of now knows like where are people curious, or where can they do a little bit more as far as like documentation or write an article or make a video. And so they're winning, but then they're also putting out this bounty, and the people that participate are winning. So it's almost like buying everyone a cup of coffee. Sometimes there's a huge pool and not many people participate. And so you can get a nice decent chunk. Base builds is another one mostly for builders. Nouns seems to do one every week almost. If not, I think there's sometimes multiple for the nouns. Shout out to the Nounie. But yeah, that's kind of what it is.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. And we've all had a little pocket money over the summer, those of us that have participated in this. Base builds is another one that happens over the weekends, where you can just share what you built that week, and you can be eligible for a little basic free income. It's not going to pay you rent, but it's something.
It might pay your rent, but it might buy you dinner, or in some cases it just varies week to week, and it depends on how many people are building, right, for that one. But I've seen people that don't even like build in like a technical sense, but they build like a community, or they built like some art, or they taught a class or whatever that they used NFTs for. So you can get creative with it, and they're not like saying no. There's strict rules. It's just if you do it and it seems like it's good and they like it, then hooray, you're in. If they don't like it, then try again next week, right? So for me, I think it's a cool way to get content. It's a good way to like pick people's brains, like create art. Like there's all kinds. So if you go to, I think it's rounds.wtf, you can see all the active ones. But things that I've been seeing is like even individuals have been taking like, here's 30,000 degen. You do this, right? And so there's a bunch of different ones that are even for smaller, more niche kind of channels that are cropping up. So it's a really cool vehicle for creating win-win solutions.
Yep. what else can we say about rounds? I think rounds are also an interesting proposition for those who have businesses using them as a marketing tool. You and I have
Yes.
talked about this for help, like how could we potentially engage people with rounds? And I think just the possibility for quality content there is really interesting, and actually being able to reward with tangible funds as well is really great.
Yeah, and sometimes I think the coolest ones are the ones that like you're already doing it, and so it doesn't even feel like work, but like you're able to the person doing it is able to kind of corral these stories or corral these initiatives or these actions. And so yeah, it's that win-win thing. Some of the other ones though are like, as you said, like it's a business opportunity to get someone to do something maybe they haven't tried, like, oh hey, mint an NFT on this platform, or try the new XYZ. If you do that and post the results, then so you're kind of getting people to try new things, and you're paying them for their time to take that risk of sacrificing time of doing a thing. So I think it's a brilliant idea. And I think you said it's almost like a universal income for a lot of folks. Not that it's a livable wage, but you never know. It just depends on which one it is. But it's still cool to say like, oh, I posted a thing that I was going to probably post anyway, or I get to amplify what I built, and now I'm getting a reward on top of it for just like being a part of, like, you're here kind of thing. So.
And I will also say, if you have a little bit of a platform somewhere else, like I have about 12,000 followers on Instagram, and you share content about base right now, there's a base creators channel, and they are really rewarding there as well. I actually shared a video of Basecamp, and I got the equivalent to about 250 USD for sharing.
Oh, wow. Today I learned, I didn't know they were doing that. I mean, I rarely go to the other place, but when I do, I normally talk about how terrible it is and how Farcaster and Superchain so much better. That's the kind of content people are craving these days, is to tell them that the thing they're doing is dumb and that there's a better way. Yeah, just super engaged. They are over there.
Instagram, that is, not Twitter. So, yes.
Oh, why? Yeah, that's even further away from my radar.
And it has been from mine too, but I'm also starting to think, okay, well, how can I use the platform that I have there to help educate people to know what's over here, and just kind of thinking of it as like a temporary way of like.
I've probably pulled. Yeah, I agree. I think I've probably pulled like 30 or 40 people over to trying it, and then of that, I think probably like 50% have stuck around and like, actually, this is better. I trust you. And the other half, I think, weren't power users elsewhere either, and so, but they know there's a better way now. So
totally. All right, so Sunny's rounds interoperability. Let's just talk a little bit about Benji's article. He put out a great piece following FWB and also Basecamp. I'm going to put it in the comments. It is a CoinDesk article, but just wanted to touch on a few things that he dropped in that article. I don't know whether you've had a chance to read it, Brock. I did kind of drop it on you this morning.
No worries. I have not read it. It's full, just transparency. But
let me pull out a couple of highlights and let's discuss. So he said events like Basecamp and FWB Fest demonstrate the value of neutral spaces where different skill sets can converge to create greater value. This is something that's always kind of stuck out to me at these events, is like we have such a cross section of people that are building on chain, like in terms of like the variety of skill set, the level of skill set, but also like culturally where we're at in this, just bringing ourselves on chain, like who we're bringing on chain. So I think just curious to know like what you see on the dev side, or how much you feel in person plays a role.
It's funny that that he wrote this article as timely as, like, I've had literal conversations with folks. Had a great chat with Jordan, who you interviewed, and that came up of like the frustrations of a non-tech person kind of coming on chain and trying to be on chain. And I think there are some things that are like frictionless enough, like minting an NFT, but like wanting to build like a community. And so I was able to kind of say like, oh, well, Hypersub kind of helps you do that, or this. And so there's so many things happening. I think that we need a way to get tech and non-tech people together. And these live events, I think, are good. I do think that in a way, though, it is probably like a scoop of the same pool and less of like outsiders, which I think is silly. But if we can get more people to say, I really want to do this, and we can say, oh, on chain you can do X, Y, and Z, and then they're like, oh, but that sounds like code. And then there's enough of those demands. Having developers build tools that empower those folks to do those things. And Jesse, I think, said this, and build things that people want to use. Like we need to, like the devs have a job because we've got a skill set to empower. And if we're not doing that, like I get everyone's got to keep their lights on, but if we're not building stuff to empower, we're shooting ourselves in the foot. Like the things that you're building are never going to reach critical mass if you don't reach the masses. And so we need to get the friction points and the ease of jumping in, the ease of doing something, the ease of feeling value and valued at the forefront. And if we don't, then it is going to only grow so far. And so, yeah, I think that's a big yes. We need these events. Yes, we need to do more. And I think we need this gathering place, this rallying point, because I think people coming in go, wow. And they start to look up and see everything that's happening. And it's so loud, noisy, chaotic. Like you're looking at a mountain and you're like, that is scary. And I'm going to go over here. And so having somebody that can have this like rallying point and say like, oh, hey, what are you trying to do? And like utilize the cozy corners of something like Barcaster to get people to stick around and slowly kind of figure things out, and then use that as a point to surface issues where we are not covering it because of our own current like zeroed in perspective, and widen that. And if we don't do that, then I do feel like that's going to be a pain point for us as people that are on chain, growing and having more people see. Again, it sounds like a cult, but I just think it's an empowering thing, right? Like people are out there that are running businesses almost on hard mode, where they could cut out middlemen, they could cut out extra fees, they could have more time in their lives by doing things on chain, and have potentially a better life. And we're seeing it now, but I want it to turn from a trickle of a faucet, which is a blockchain joke, to like the rush of a stream or a river that we can all use, right? So it's a great first step. I'm not saying that's the first step or that no, there's steps before it, but I think we just need to push more. And whether it's digital, physical, just having that rallying point to get more people in, to know where we need to open some more doors and make things more turnkey for people, where it doesn't take a tech lift. It's like a good example is the smart wallet, right? The smart wallet where you can sign up in seconds and you don't need a private key. That is a genius invention, right? More like that, to where it's like, oh, smart wallet, and you have an online store. Well, like, click here to enable crypto. Like it needs to be that frictionless, and for people to go, oh, this is dope. Like this is cool. This is what I want to do. Or oh, I see. Like this is sparking idea, and creating that flywheel effect of getting new people in, finding what they want to do, and if they're hitting friction, remove that friction and empower. That is how we turn things to where Basecamp is not just come talk about base. It's come celebrate on chain. And if you're new here, like look at all these avenues you can explore, that kind of thing. Going all the way back to like the Superchain like theme park, we struggle to have a park map. And I think that's that, and people need that bird's eye view of knowing what you can do. And then also that bird's eye view lets us know like what parks are missing. Like what are the pieces that like, we haven't covered yet? Because to us, they weren't apparent, but to other people's, it was obvious. Those kinds of things.
Yeah. I love
Sorry,
this.
I ranted a whole lot.
No, I love your rants on these topics, especially I think just having us being the duo of like a non-tech and a techie builder. Like,
right. This is like, again, not tooting our own horn, but this show is the magic because it is those two worlds colliding, and still celebrating, but also surfacing things. Like I think sometimes people say like, oh, we don't have everything for everyone yet. That's okay. But like we're fearless about building it if we are missing a piece and moving towards it. And it's the yes and kind of drum that we're kind of beating to. But we can't just celebrate like we're done. I think that there's it needs to be my mother, who's in her like 60s, needs to be able to just go, yeah, I'm on chain now. Like that is the goal. Like and then everyone in between. But yeah, there's work to do. But I'm optimistic about we've got the right folks here already. We just need to keep adding to the pool and building things that empower others, that don't necessarily handcuff us to needing a dev for everything.
Yeah. And I love just kind of to give people like a little insight into like our collaborations, like how we've worked together on a couple of projects. It's like, I'll come to you with a problem and say, there's no solution for this on chain. And you're like, well, tell me in a dream scenario, like what this would look like. And then it's that kind of back and forth of like, well, how do we make this happen? And what are the friction points? And I think just to touch on that, like we are in the middle of our accelerator right now for help. And it's been really interesting to get that real-time user feedback and conversation around what the people actually need in this like very open forum that we've set up.
Yeah, I think building in public can feel uncomfortable because it's like I wasn't properly dressed for this or whatever, but like moving through that uncomfortableness and just like no one cares what you're wearing most of the time, like unless you do, then that's where it goes. And so being able to say like, oh, this seems like it's impossible, like I think that's just like that you throwing up your hands really fast of like, oh, it's going to be work. But then you can also reframe that of it's just going to be work. Like that's it. It's just work. It's one foot after the other. We're going to build the thing. And I think that has been the mantra that I've kind of followed through. It's like I don't care about like the word hard doesn't exist to me. Like it is all just work. Whether it's a lot of work or a little work, it's just one foot after the other. But the thing that I really hone in on is like, what does it unlock? Like with this all these steps, like it is now empowering people to do X, or it is now saving people time, or it's like saving an entire village that now had no hope, that now has a path, right? Like those are the things where it's just steps. Why wouldn't I take them if it's unlocking all these other people? And I think that's on chain. It allows us to get away from the mindset that there's only so many slices of pie. No, there's infinity pieces of pie. We just have to make the thing that makes pie. That's it. Everyone can have a piece, and it doesn't take my piece to give someone else a piece. Like it's demystifying that Web 2. We have on-chain to try and replace Web 3, but like Web 2, I still kind of throw out because I don't want to say like anti-chain or off-chain. Like sure, but like I don't want to exclude. I want to just keep like this can be an addition to your way of working and living and all these other things that for me I think is better. So yeah.
I love that you talked about the kind of pieces of the pie. It's something that my friend and chief brand officer at Time, Maya Drazen, talks about this idea of a cosmic pie and how there's enough for everybody. And me getting more slices doesn't mean that you're missing out. So
even if someone takes seconds, it doesn't mean that I lost my slice. Like I think it's getting rid of that scarcity mindset and just realizing like, hey, we can build solutions that just work for everybody because we can. We just have to decide to do it. And luckily enough, a lot of people have decided to do it, and we're seeing the fruits of that effort, the fruits of that belief, the fruits of everything come to fruition. And now people are able to jump on top of that even more.
I'm plugging not us as help, but the fact that we have somebody actively fundraising, and I want to give them a shout out for jumping right in. This is not somebody who's in the accelerator. This is somebody who just started using help this week. What an amazing cause. This gentleman is teaching or striving to teach the basics of photography to deaf students. Amazing to see this out in the open with his fundraising all ready to roll. And he's already raised $190 of his goal towards $10,000. So I was pretty giddy when I saw this. I think it's really exciting to see folks just jumping in with this, and I'm excited to see more projects.
Yeah, and again, supports that like the on-chainness of like you don't need permission. Like we made a thing that empowers people to jump in. Like you don't have to be a part of the cohort. You don't have to be like you don't even like if I'm sleeping, you can still set up a campaign and start telling your story and hopefully like finding people that resonate with that. And bit by bit, even if you've got a goal of 10,000 and you're only at 200, like it's a day or so in, and it's just a matter of like snowballing, getting that message out, and I'm sure it will get them to where they need to go.
Amazing. All right, what else do we have today? We have
there was a GameStop thing.
GameSwift. I kept calling them GameStop.
Probably don't do that.
Let's talk about GameSwift. Well, let's actually just talk a little bit more broadly about gaming on chain. I don't even know this about you. Are you a gamer?
I do play sometimes, but most of my games I play, I have this knack for playing games that are like 10 years old and sticking with them. And so most of the games that I play are very, very old. But I enjoy games. I play a lot of games with my kids, like almost nightly. But it's not like console or like it's more just like whatever they want to play. I just play in. But I do think I saw something that was pretty cool. That was Minecraft on chain. And so basically you go in, link a wallet, and then you go and connect to a specific server that's like kind of tied together. And while you're playing there, the resources that you get are actually now shown on a dashboard as like tangible digital goods, and then people can buy and sell them, and they like leave your inventory, I think. And so it's almost like this like community on-chain version of Minecraft, but you're playing Minecraft like the normal game, but everything's on chain. So it's pretty interesting. I don't know how many people are going to jump into that, but it was cool to see. I tried to jump in, but then I saw like I had to connect to a server, and I was like, okay, I don't have time for this right now. But it was still cool to see like that someone's figuring out how to bring a game that people love by the millions and millions on chain in a way that's looked pretty cool.
So with AI in gaming, well, first of all, let's just have a big fact here. There's 3.3 billion gamers worldwide. Seems like a really good vertical to go after to bring people on chain with that kind of volume. But just, we've seen like a surge in companies, collectives, businesses using AI technologies, and we're now seeing it really just taking a front stage moment in the gaming industry. So AI technology is capable of generating infinite storylines, improving gameplay through real-time data analysis, and creating more adaptive, immersive experiences. Let's talk about that. Any thoughts on it?
Surprise, I have thoughts.
Especially with something like Fiches in your back pocket, like that's.
So that was there was a reality where Fiches got like a game with an infinite, and I still want to bring it to life. It's just a matter of priorities and stuff. But yeah, so I think where AI can shine in a way is like with the non-playable characters. So if you're not familiar, there's like you are a player. Other times you can connect into like multiplayer where it's like a human controlling it. But then there's characters like people that are in the village that are just there. And in the olden times, you would talk to them and it would just be on a loop, like a set amount of dialogue. And they would say, give you a story, and you could say yes or no, or 3 options. And then that would trigger like this dialogue tree. With AI, instead, they can just say, hey, some kind of like version of an opening prompt that's unique every time. And then you could actually even say out loud, it will convert your text out loud into text that it can understand your text, and then respond to what you just said. And so you'd be like, where's the dragon? If that's the kind of game that you're playing or whatever. And they're like, oh, no one's seen the dragon in forever, but last they saw it was over here. And you're like, okay, well, how can I get there fast? Like, well, you're having an actual like dialogue that's just endless. And then you could like leave and then come back and say, hey, remember that dragon you told me about? And they're like, yeah, of course. Like where it actually starts to have like the short-term memory as well as infinite dialogue, because it's just reacting to what you're saying based on like a character that it's been prompted to behave as. So I think that is cool. I do think that there are some things where we're trying to use AI currently in the industry. Not that I'm a part of necessarily the industry. I mean, I make games, but where they're trying to like cut costs by like not hiring humans to do things. Like it's like, oh, we can make this, like we don't need voice actors. We can just use this synthesized thing. Like that's sort of whack. Like I think you should, if you're going to do that where you need infinite talks, like make a contract with the person of like, I want to get your likeness so I can synthesize it for this. Here's how it'll be used. It will be infinite clips of dialogue, but here's that, or here's the cost, and then come to a fair price on what that is. And I think that makes more sense than hiring someone to just constantly do infinite. So like there is a cost savings where you're able to deliver a better experience, but not like lose on it. So like that needs to happen, I think, rather than not hiring people to do work and just having it. But the flip side is if you're an indie dev and you can't afford it, like, I don't know. So that I think is a big area. We have to figure out where's the morality line. But then going into on-chain stuff, is that what you were also asking about?
Yeah, well, I think now we get to kind of the interoperability piece, right? With the ability to do this on-chain and across different infrastructure.
Right. So I think that is, I think the knee jerk is there's a lot of these like shooter games that have skins and like weapon skins and things like that. Where I think the knee jerk is almost like how the knee jerk for blockchain was gambling in the beginning. Like, oh, blockchain gambling. That's the only use case I can think of. Like, we've come a long way from that, and I hope that we can get to a long way from the first. Because like, sure, you can sell NFTs as skins, but the better like +1 is like I play a game and it asks me to name like a character that means like a lot to me, and then that actually, instead of me thinking that it's a human or a person that's going to be in the game, I actually am naming like this sword, right? And then it builds lore around that of like this person was blah blah, and it sets the story arc. And like that's my sword, and when you play it, it's a different sword, and now that sword belongs to me. And the crazy thing is, like, let's say it's a battle game and I die in battle and my sword's there, you can go and find my sword. And
Wow.
then now you're like, wow, I found this cool sword. And it's an NFT, and now it's got history that it belonged to me, and now it's been transferred to you. And then I play the game if I respawn again, or now I want my sword back. And so if I find you, maybe you transfer it to me or we trade it and you trade it back to me. Or maybe you just are a nice person, you give it to me. Or you're a mean person and I have to like take you down to get my sword back because I want, like, it puts meaning on digital things that would be meaningless otherwise. That you like, it's the storytelling. And I think that that's the part that I think it needs to grow to, where we can have the technology to have these historical things, or like a legendary book, and everyone signs their name in this book, and the more that people sign their name in a book, the more powerful it becomes. But there are things that can be done that where the technology is wrapped in creativity and it matters, versus, hey, do you want to buy my gun skin? Sure, I'll buy your gun skin. Okay, here's my gun skin. Like, I think that that's fine, but I think we can take it way better, and I think gamers want more. And I think that there's been reluctancy to have anything on chain because they see it as a cash grab. It needs to be more meaningful than a cash grab. Otherwise, it doesn't work. And until that, I guess, and taking that idea of like this sword that is my sword or whatever, say a new version of the game comes, I can actually take my sword with me to the new game. And then somebody else, like if they get interoperability, if somebody else makes a game where they're like, any of the things from this story over here will work in ours, and because it's all on chain, that game developer doesn't need permission necessarily. It might look different asset wise, but like even if they just reference that you've got a sword the whole game and then it's got this name, it now matters, and like that player now has a history across worlds. And it doesn't need to go into like a multiverse like chaotic thing, but just being able to have history or shared history between things because it's all on chain, that I think will make a more telling user experience and a more meaningful game, to where like when you lose it, it hurts, or if you upgrade it, it feels amazing because you did a thing, and now that is with you like as a badge of honor. And if you give it to somebody else, it actually matters because it has weight and it has the whole history behind it, like the whole way through of everyone that's held it. I think that's where we start to like mirror these stories that are almost like bottle episodes of a video game, of like, you start the game, you end the game, the end. And that, but now it's, I start the game, I finished one chapter, and now I might have another chapter somewhere else. And the world matters. Things have meaning. Like actions that I took are real, even though they're digital, right? I think that's where gaming and on-chain really take flight. And I think that's when you stop getting a lot of resistance, because there's more thought and meaning and power in it, instead of, do you want to buy a thing because I need to sell things and to make my bottom line bigger or whatever. Like, you can still sell the things. Let me have this crazy sword that's amazing and sell it to somebody. But like, I'm selling my history, so like, do I want to sell that? Like that, those are the kind of things. Like, I think it's when you make it because you should, instead of like make it because, oh, we can make these things and we'll make super rare ones and then we'll sell those and we'll give them. You can have both, but when you're leaning on the first thing where you're just trying to sell stuff, I think there's a reluctancy, especially when there already is hesitancy of like, games used to cost this. Now there's games like, you want to buy a game, it's $100. And also in 5 years, when like it's not as popular, like you won't be able to play it at all anymore. Like, there's just so much chaos. But I think on-chain can help elevate in a lot of ways.
How do you feel about kind of having a coin tied to on-chain activity within gaming?
Cool.
Yeah. So, like for example, with GameSwift, they have G Swift. So they have. Let me just read this here. So GameSwift introduced the GS DAO Treasury in January, setting a new standard for community governance in the Web3 ecosystem. With significant endowments of G Swift and Sparta tokens, the Treasury is a powerhouse of resources, a decentralized approach ensuring that the community has a real stake in GameSwift's future.
I do think that can be cool. Like, we'll see how it kind of plays out. I do think there's the hurdle currently of very, very heavy and high walls from the gaming community of blockchain being evil. And I think it's more about these use cases that we talk about every week coming to light. That's like, not everything is just trying to screw you over. Right. There is a lot of things where it's actually trying to do the opposite and empower and give you a foundation. And we're creating systems that are for all, instead of systems that are for one or a few. And I think that is something that gamers actually would get behind, but the walls are so high, it's just going to take a lot of time to, you have to almost earn the trust over time. And it's going to be a difficult road, but I do think that is a cool idea. It would be really cool, I think, for that kind of DAO to go after actual change with the current landscape of the gaming industry. I watched a video yesterday where it was about how people are trying to petition in the UK that like online only games. So there's like games that I can just play because I have a disc and I can always play and you can't take it away with me. A lot of these newer games have online components even if you have the disc, where if they're like, we're no longer going to support this game because it doesn't financially make sense because it's so tethered to online that your disc is now dead and useless. So I hope you enjoyed the however many years we decided. And if we didn't make a lot of money, maybe it's 2 years. But maybe if we made a lot of money, then maybe it's 5 years or 10 years if you're very lucky. Right. They're petitioning that game studios can launch like online only games, but before they sunset things, they have to like detether those lines and allow the game to be self-contained to where I can jump in and play even if it's by myself. I still have a game, right? And so it would be cool if the DAO actually starts doing that kind of stuff, like pushing and using all these resources to make change while changing from within as well. Because I think things like that would actually matter to gamers. And like, oh, wait a second, these people do care. Otherwise, I think sometimes, again, those walls are heavy and high and they're not even going to listen. So it's a uphill battle, I think, currently, but the slow and steady and making actual prides just because you can that benefit them, even if they'll never use you or even if they hate you, that starts to give some people a chance to actually listen to what you have to say and how you want to make a difference.
Your dog has something to say about it.
She's very angry. Somebody breathed outside.
I think about something that Rad always talks about, our friend Rad Laser Falcon, about the need for like a vernacular change on how we communicate. And just like you said, like the terms blockchain, NFT have come with such weight of like being tied to speculative activity and degen behavior. Just this pivot that we've seen, and I think it's come from Coinbase down, is this idea that everything is on chain. I think we're already seeing the effects of that. It's like taking some of the power and fear out of it. And something that I observed at one of the conferences recently was a speaker was talking about how she had asked her daughter a question, and she had like a 12-year-old. And she said, well, you're a gamer. Tell me about XYZ. And she said, well, Mom, I'm not a gamer. And she said, what do you mean? You spend every day on Roblox. She's like, that's not gaming. Like, kids don't think of being in Roblox as gaming. It's just become part of their landscape. It's like the mall for them, right? Like, how important, one, is the vernacular change, and two is this idea that we're kind of removing the language of like gaming and gamers from this conversation. And we're also seeing a lot more gamification coming into marketing for regular tools and protocols. Like, what does that all of that mean to you?
Great question. To me, I think especially with the current generation that's kind of coming up, a lot of them went through COVID, and again, not trying to like spark anybody's anger or whatever, but that time where everyone was inside, or every time where like schools had to go virtual, sometimes that virtualness like did come into the fact for socialization on the streets of the internet or the streets of like Roblox. And so like, whereas we would go outside when I was a kid, back in the olden times, and go and build forts and all kinds of stuff. They're doing it digitally now. And I think some people look at it and say like, oh, that's stupid, get off that device. But also I think that's almost like saying like, stay inside, because mentally and digitally, like, they're with their friends, they're going on adventures, they're running around and building things and building worlds and forging like communities and cultures in these places. And to some people that have not experienced it, it may seem fake, but for those that have been in it, it's the same. It's just different. And so I think that they might understand they're playing Roblox, which is a like a world of worlds of game making, and where they like, hey, let's go and play this game today. Oh, okay, let's play that, but then later can we do this? And like, so some of it is playing, but other times it's like, hey, I'm just gonna go hang out in this thing. And like lately my daughter's been like playing in a Roblox like thing where she's like building houses, and so she's like designing the walls and doing this. And the funny thing is, like, because they don't have someone there saying like, walls don't work that way, that doesn't do that, like, you can't put that there. She creates things that aren't supposed to be there, but then when you experience them, they're amazing, right? Like, so it's where she's like, yeah, one of the times, sorry, I'm rambling a little bit, but like she found that if you could put a chair just outside the wall, you could trick your body into sitting in it, and then you can jump out, and now you're outside of your house in your house. And then that gave her, like, she could make a big flat plane, and then she could build the house using like just basic shapes. And so she had a custom house in the sky outside of her house. And I was like, this is awesome. And like, had anyone been sitting there telling them like, hey, don't get off that device, and like, again, we do screen time and all that stuff, but like, anyone had said like, that's not how it's supposed to work, then that would have never been created. And it's amazing. Mm-hmm. And so I think similarly on chain, there's a lot of like, you don't have to ask anyone's permission, you can just do it. Like, you're empowered to do the thing. And I think that's why we're getting to these like magical, really cool things that are happening when allowed to do so. And it's sure, we've, unfortunately, because you're allowed to do anything, some people decide, I'm going to scam somebody today, or I'm going to trick people into doing this, or I'm going to create a project, and then once I have the money, I'm going to disappear. Like, yeah, that happens, but that also happens in real life too. And if you think that because on-chain is there, like that's the only reason that's happening, no, those people are going to do that anyway. But the people that are here now, and like the lowest of the low, like a bull and bear and whatever animal cycle we're in, and sticking it out and building it, like, this is where the magic's happening. And it's good for the people that show up next, they're going to have it way better. And instead of looking at it as like, back in my day, like, we used to have so much friction, we're like, we're so glad you're here, because now you can continue to carry that torch for further. And the new norm is everybody wins instead of a few people win. And so that's, I think, super cool to see. And it's not even linked to just the United States or one location. Like, all over the world, people are winning because of this new way of life. And it's just a matter of getting exposed to it, finding the friction points, removing them, and then making it to where it's just like, of course, this is how it should have been.
It's amazing. Love the little deep dive on gaming. Thank you, Brock, for taking us on that journey. So what else? We have about 10 minutes left. What else are you seeing? Anything in the Farcaster ecosystem that we should be aware of?
There are a lot of updates coming. Some of the team on Warpcast specifically, but also Supercast has been like jamming on tons of stuff. They're super cool to see them moving on so many different things. Warpcast, I think, is working on improving like direct casts, and also working on like NFTs. I think what big ask has been like, I want my community to live here because I like it here, but I want only my community. And so if they have an NFT, I want that to be like the token gated access to getting into this chat. And if they sell it, then I want them removed. And so that is actually coming, as well as some other things. So just super cool community building tools to where it's just the spot. And if for some reason Warpcast either is doing it in a way that you don't like, or doing it too slowly, other clients are moving just as rapidly and covering features too. And so I think I'm finding that I'm splitting my time between like 2 and 3 clients to do my Farcastering. And I think that's going to become the norm somewhat. Maybe not for everybody, because I could see that it becomes tedious to some folks, but having 2 apps on your phone, like, I'm DMing people over on Farcaster, but then Wildcard has the like Pencast, and so I want to go and like see what matters to people, flipping over there. And then Supercast has like the Super Badge, as well as like their the old Power Badge still. So that if that's an indicator of like who's who and whatnot, that is, or like double checking that they're like not some new user or whatever, like all these things start to kind of work together into like having the best of all worlds.
Yeah. Really quick before we carry on with Farcaster, I want to make sure we don't miss this.
No, yeah.
Let me just read here. So Coinbase is developing CBBTC, a wrapped Bitcoin alternative similar to BitGo's WBTC, to run on its layer 2 blockchain base. This initiative aims to bring a massive Bitcoin economy on the network, as hinted by cryptic tweets from Coinbase and base creator Jesse Pollock. Despite some controversy surrounding WBTC, the protocol remains stable. Coinbase's BTC, CBBTC, that's a lot to say, by the way, will facilitate increased liquidity and usability of Bitcoin within the base ecosystem, enhancing its appeal and functionality for users. Okay, help. Make this make sense.
Yeah, so basically it's taking like Bitcoin And then, so I have 1 Bitcoin, because of course, and then I can wrap that Bitcoin, and now it's a base asset. And so now my Bitcoin can actually sit in my Rainbow wallet or my Coinbase wallet alongside all my other base assets. And if I want to pay somebody in BTC, I can pay them in CB BTC, or just base B. I don't know why we should drop the C, just call it based BTC or whatever. But I can pay in that. And then now, whoever that is, they can now pay somebody else or buy something or what have you. And if someone needs to convert it back to Bitcoin, they would just basically go through a process of burning the BTC and then receiving in a new wallet that you'd have to specify the actual Bitcoin that was there. And so we do this with wrapped assets for all types of things. It's just using something that's not on the same network. So the biggest difference here is Bitcoin is not on Ethereum. And so you would be basically locking up something on Bitcoin side, like on their network. So it's locked and no one can touch it. And then the equivalent gets minted on Base, and that is a BTC asset now. And so I think the article that they're saying is like it would expose more people to Bitcoin. Yeah, I think so, because I think a lot of people are jumping into MetaMask and not being able to be exposed directly to Bitcoin. And so it's kind of been excluded from a lot of the action. And some might say that's better. Like, I think if some people are just like, it's Bitcoin only because that's the only thing I trust, that's fair. But like, this is exposing more people to Bitcoin and making it usable and reducing the speed down to like next to nothing, and then the cost to move it to next to nothing. And all it would take is like wrapping it once. And so, yeah, I think it's a good idea. And I don't think it's necessarily like, this is an amazing new idea. Like, we wrap things all the time, but having something that is standardized and kind of like, we're standing behind this will help. Do we lose you? I don't know if we lost you, but anyway, I think that it is something that is good overall. And if you don't like it, just don't use it. Stick to using your Bitcoin. And if you do like it, then hooray. But I do think it'll make it more usable by more folks. So that's what I like to do. That's what I would do it. I don't know where you went. Dead air is the best. But anyway, I think that was pretty much our last topic. The only other thing that we were talking about is just more Farcaster updates, and there continues to grow everywhere. And so that's kind of where we're at with that. And yeah, thanks everybody for a great show. If Rachel pops back in, then we'll do a proper send off. But if not, thanks for tuning in. I hope to see you on the next one. And as always, if you have any questions, please leave them in the comments and we will get to them or even feature them on the show if it's something that we think is worth going over. So thanks. Have a great day.